Hey guys, today we're going to look at a Warframe and we're going to look at Excalibur. I'm going to look at the first 3 starting frames in the game first, and that obviously begins with Excalibur. Out of the starting Warframes in Warframe, Excalibur is the most selected as far as I'm aware. Excalibur has been recently reworked along with a bunch of other Warframes such as Frost and Mesa, sometimes for a nerf, sometimes for a buff, and generally I've noticed all Warframes have started to become more powerful recently. Excalibur is no exception to this rule. Okay, so Excalibur's first ability is Slash Dash. Slash Dash has been majorly improved since the update to Excalibur. Slash Dash will slash between multiple enemies, slashing multiple enemies and dealing high damage. Slash Dash is also incredibly useful for utility, and you can move around very quickly with Excalibur and you can use it as an escape. Slash Dash can also be used multiple times. If you're slash dashing one group of enemies, you can keep pressing that button to go between multiple enemies and keep dealing high damage with Slash Dash. The final very useful thing you can get from Slash Dash is Knockdown. If you don't kill an enemy, there's a good chance you'll knock him down, and then you can finish him off with a finisher attack. The next of Excalibur's abilities is Radial Blind. Radial Blind's not an ability that I use much myself, because I prefer to deal damage and actually kill things, as well as I love the effects and animations on Radial Javelin, Slash Dash, and the new Exalted Blade. Radial Blind is generally, I would say, better for an escape. You can use it to stun large amounts of enemies, especially if you have power range, and then you can get out and regenerate your shields. Though a lot of people use it for offensive purposes because it can stun enemies, and then you can perform finishing attacks and crit damage on enemies. The third ability for Excalibur is called Radial Javelin, or as Craig would call it, Javelin Time. Javelin Time used to be Excalibur's ultimate move, which makes it an extremely powerful move. I believe they've kept the move practically exactly the same as it was when it was an ultimate, so altogether this is just a big buff for Excalibur. Javelin Time fires 12 javelins in a radius around Excalibur that can hit multiple enemies and pin them to walls. It also does incredibly high damage. It does incredibly high damage, especially with the build that I've used. It's a damage focused build and it has no disadvantages from the duration debuff. Javelin Time has a short cast animation, but it can also be sped up by Warframe cast animation speeds, and the cast animation usually shouldn't be enough to be a problem. You should usually still have time to use it and kill your enemies without taking too much damage. The only possible downside to this ability is I'm not sure if it has been nerfed in the way that it doesn't hit as many enemies. While before I'm told that it used to hit every enemy within the radius, while now it might not hit quite so many enemies. However, I'm sure this issue can be solved just by using the move multiple times. The last of Excalibur's moves is the Ethel Blade. Ethel Blade is an incredibly cool new move they've added to Excalibur, which basically gives you a blade of energy that can blind enemies upon its swing, and it can also be used in conjunction with every single one of Excalibur's other moves. If you use Radial Blind, it'll use the blade when you do the blind animation. Slash Dash will use the blade as its source of weapon damage, and also use the animations with the blade. And Ethel Blade on itself, when you swing the blade, creates waves of energy, which also do damage to enemies at long range, so it's theoretically able to use it in long range combat like a gun, even though it's a sword. On top of that, with this build, if you use power efficiency, you can keep the blade indefinitely, because the more enemies you kill, the more energy orbs they drop, and the longer you can keep the blade out, as it only has a drain time of 1 energy per second with this build. Overall, Ethel Blade is an amazing addition to the Excalibur arsenal, and I think it's an incredible move that could be used in conjunction with other moves, and it's very cool to watch generally. So again, it's a very cool ultimate move for the new Excalibur rework. Okay, there are several ways to mod Excalibur. Now, myself personally, I prefer to go with ability power and power efficiency. I go with power efficiency on most Warframes, so this is the build I use for my Excalibur, though I do not play Excalibur regularly. I firstly use Energy Siphon, as he has no effect on his polarity. With some polarities, we have the it'll have a different slot up here, which will mean basically you'll get a negative effect and you'll get less extra slots for the polarity that you're putting in. I use Vigor first of all, which is a nightmare mod, which you might find difficult to get, but it gives you shields and health, and obviously it's all in one mod, which makes it a lot easier. I then use Streamline and Fleeting Expertise for power efficiency. That gives you a total of 90% power efficiency. It does give you minus power duration, so if you plan on using your stun, if you plan on using your Radial Blind, then you may not want to use Fleeting Expertise, as it will minus the duration of it, and mine only lasts for about 3 seconds. And if you use power duration, then you can get it up to about 30 seconds. But anyway, that's just my preference. The only negative side effect of this build is using minus power duration, so the blind is not that useful. It can still play quite useful for getting away from, if you have like a last minute escape and you have like a panic click, then it can still work as a good panic click button. I use Transient Fortitude, which again minuses power duration, so I have 2 mods that put negative duration, which is good in my opinion because it focuses on only having 1 negative feature here, and it also increases power strength against that, increase the damage of all of your abilities. Then I have Flow, which gives you a higher energy pool, which with Excalibur I think is really important, surely because if you're using his last move, when using his Exalted Blade, that means you have a higher energy pool to draw from, so it'll be unlikely to run out. Also, if you keep the Exalted Blade active with this power efficiency, then it only costs 1 energy per second, and the amount of enemies you're killing will drop more energy orbs, so you're practically going to be able to use that forever. Stretch increases the range of all of your moves, including Radial Blind, your Javelins, your Slash Dash, everything will have a higher range, which is generally pretty good on Excalibur. And lastly, I'm using a broken Intensify, though in this case it's because I haven't formed my Excalibur whatsoever, and it's the capacity there. Obviously, if you have the room for it, you can use a fully powered Intensify, but this is just for me to fill up that gap. Altogether, after modding Excalibur, you can see the damage output is increased dramatically, and the only things that have gone down here are the duration. Okay, so starting with Slash Dash, you have a higher damage, which is good all round. Every slash you do with it would deal more damage. Also, when you use the Slash Dash and you use Exalted Blade at the same time, it will proc the energy wave that's fired from the Exalted Blade. I just call it Getsuga Tencho because I've watched too much Bleach. But yeah, it will fire a Getsuga every single time that you use the Slash Dash between enemies. You can also repeatedly hit the button to continue slashing between enemies, outside of the move's usual radius. You can also use Slash Dash for transportation and escaping if you need to if you're on low health. Radial Blind, with this build, doesn't actually really do anything. It increases the range, so it could be good for a very quick panic escape, so you can quickly click it and run, or you can quicken and Slash Dash away, whatever you do, but it doesn't have very long duration with this build, which is the only downside of this build. Some people may wish to extend their Radial Blind using duration, and that will give you higher crits. Also, enemies that are affected by the Radial Blind again can be critted and have finishing moves performed on them. Radial Javelin has an immense amount of damage with this build. Radial Javelin was originally Excalibur's ultimate move, which is why it has...
Maintain the operator. Mobilize the Tenno.
Thanks for that, Ordis. Which is why it has such a high damage and why it's such a powerful move. The number of javelins I don't think can be increased by things, however its range is affected again by the range extension mods, which means this move can generally cause a hell of a lot of damage if you're in a crowd of enemies. Exalted Blade is finally Excalibur's ultimate move, which has an incredible amount of damage, obviously, from the damage buffs that you've given it, and the power efficiency works amazingly with this move, as you can keep it active the entire time if you wish to do so. As long as you're killing enough enemies, your energy will not deplete, and you have a nice big energy pool from Flow. The blind is still longer than the Radial Blind, even though it's been decreased. Sorry. The blind is shorter than the Radial Blind, however, its blind in range is shorter as well, but it will affect more enemies generally because you're slashing more than you would be when you're activating the Radial Blind. So generally, all in all, this build is really good for a nice solid damage. It's got really nice range on its abilities, especially with Slash Dash, Exalted Blade, and Radial Javelin, and the damage output altogether is pretty insane, to be fair. So if you wish to go for a damage build with Excalibur, that is how you would do this. So all in all, Excalibur is a really good balanced Warframe, and he's an excellent first choice out of the 3 starting Warframes. He's generally a good balanced choice for players who want to play melee or gunplay, and he can basically be played any way you want him to be played, compared to his more specific, strategically used counterparts, where they're more support and range specifically. Generally, if you're a new player in Warframe and you wish to have a Warframe with much diversity that can have many different playstyles, then Excalibur is probably the Warframe for you. Okay, thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped. I hope it gave you a good idea as to what Excalibur is like, and I hope it helped you. So if you thought this build and gameplay video was useful, remember to leave a like and let me know what you thought in the comments section below. And if you wish to see more Warframe videos like this, then remember to subscribe. I also make Warframe fashion videos, I make weapon review videos similar to this, and I also make general Warframe guides. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.